We'll continue with the transport of oxygen in this class. We have already studied about the methods of oxygen transport and the role of hemoglobin in oxygen transport. In this class, we'll be studying about oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curves and the various factors which affect it. Oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve refers to the curve which is obtained when a relation between the partial pressure of oxygen and percentage of hemoglobin saturation is plotted. So whenever there is an increase in the percentage of hemoglobin saturation, there is also an increase in partial pressure of oxygen in the arterial blood. However, it is not a linear relationship, but instead it is a sigmoid shape. And we know why it is sigmoid in shape. It is because of the cooperativity among the 4 units of the hemoglobin molecule that we have already covered. So let's understand this oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. This curve is plotted by taking the x-axis and the y-axis. Along the x-axis we have the pressure of oxygen in blood ranging from 0 to 140 millimeters of mercury, while on the y-axis we have the hemoglobin saturation, which is expressed as a percentage from 0 to 100. So when blood leaves the lung and enters into the systemic arteries, the PO2 is usually 95 millimeters of mercury, and at this PO2 we can see the oxygen saturation or the hemoglobin saturation is 97%. Next we come to the venous blood, which lies at the level of the tissues. The partial pressure at the level of tissue we already know is 40 millimeters of mercury, and here the hemoglobin saturation corresponds to 75%. Next value is at the partial pressure of 60 millimeters of the mercury, and the hemoglobin saturation corresponding to this 60 millimeters of PO2 level is 89%. So this value is important at 60 millimeters of the mercury because it is dividing the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve into 2 zones. A zone which is lying from 60 to 100 millimeters is the loading zone or the flat part of the curve, and the zone which is lying below 60 millimeter of the mercury is a steep zone, and it is representing the unloading zone, and it is delivering the oxygen to the tissues. The next level of importance is at P50. P50 refers to the 50% saturation of hemoglobin, and this occurs at a partial pressure of 26.8 or to be approximately 27 millimeters of the mercury. So if we join all these points, then we get this curve which is sigmoid in nature. We'll be joining this 27 millimeters of mercury, then 40 millimeters of the mercury, then 60 millimeters of the mercury, and finally we'll be joining at 95 millimeters of mercury, and hence we get the shape of the curve that is sigmoid in nature. And as we said, it has 2 zones, the upper flat zone that lies above 60, and the other one is the steep zone which is lying below the level of 60 millimeters of mercury. So the sigmoid shape of the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curves offers certain advantages. First, it allows the greater uptake of oxygen at lung despite the variation in the alveolar air. Secondly, tissues are supplied with oxygen according to their needs, and hemoglobin acts as a buffer and maintains partial pressure of oxygen at about 40 mm. So we'll be discussing each of them. Talking about the significance of the loading zone, we know that this zone extend is the upper flat portion that is 60 to 100 millimeters of partial pressure. So even when there is a drop of partial pressure from 100 to 60 millimeter, the drop in hemoglobin saturation is just 8%. That is from 97 to 89%. So it will be sufficient to meet the body needs. There will be a little compromise on hemoglobin saturation. This is particularly important as it provides a good safety margins in the cases where there is a decrease in partial pressure of oxygen. For example, climbing mountains to a moderate attitude or even pulmonary diseases, the partial pressure of oxygen is decreased, but the oxygen saturation is not compromised. Now, talking about the significance of the unloading zone, we know that this zone refers to the steep portion of the curve that is below partial pressure of 60 millimeters of mercury. This is a steep part which refers to the oxygen delivery to the tissues. Normally, in resting condition, 5 ml of oxygen is extracted by the tissues. So whenever there is an increased demand of oxygen, for example during exercise, it may be 20 times the normal, the oxygen is delivered in a greater quantity and is available to the tissues even with the slight fall of the tissue partial pressure. This can be understood by taking an example here. Normal resting condition, the partial pressure is at the level of tissue is 40 millimeters. During exercise, the partial pressure of the venous blood falls to 35 millimeters of mercury. At partial pressure of 40, the oxygen saturation was 75%, and at partial pressure of 35, the oxygen saturation is 35%, meaning thereby approximately 40% of hemoglobin has been desaturated. This implies that a tremendous amount of oxygen has been released to the tissue to meet up the metabolic requirements. Therefore, this is very important that even with a slight decrease in tissue partial pressure, the greater release of oxygen is occurring because of the steep portion of the graph. So therefore, it helps to regulate the tissue PO2 and exerts a buffering effect. Talking about P50, P50 is defined as a partial pressure at which the hemoglobin is 50% saturated, and going and looking at this graph, we can see the hemoglobin saturation of 50% corresponds to partial pressure value of 26.7. So this value is a conventional measure for hemoglobin affinity for oxygen, and it is inversely related. A shift in the P50, an increase or decrease, result in the shifting of this sigmoid curve of oxygen hemoglobin dissociation. If the P50 is less than 27, we say the shift is to left, and if it is greater than 27, we say that the shift has been to the right. A decreased P50 means that hemoglobin has increased affinity for oxygen, and an increased P50 means that hemoglobin has decreased affinity for oxygen. Therefore, hemoglobin affinity is inversely related to various factors influence the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. They can be shifted to the left, which reflects the increased affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen and therefore decreased release in oxygen by factors such as decrease in temperature, fetal type of hemoglobin, decreased level of carbon dioxide, partial pressure, decreased 2,3 dpg level. Similarly, they can be shifted to the right, and it can be seen in conditions when there is increased temperature, decrease in pH, increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide, and increased 2,3 dpg level. They cause increased release of oxygen from the hemoglobin. Myoglobin, which acts as a temporary storehouse for oxygen, is present in high quantity in muscles specialized for the sustained contraction, for example muscles of leg and heart. And as we can see in this graph, we can compare the binding of hemoglobin with oxygen. We get this curve, which is known by the name of sigmoid or S-shaped curve. Then we have this curve for myoglobin. As you can see here, it is taking up oxygen readily even at a low pressure. So you can see here the shape of the curve is defined as rectangular hyperbola. When we compare it with the hemoglobin curve, you can see at the level of partial pressure of 40, the oxygen saturation of hemoglobin curve is 75%, whereas at the partial pressure of 40, for the myoglobin it is approximately 95% saturated. And even when you compare it with the 5 mm of partial pressure, myoglobin is saturated approximately 60%. meaning thereby that it takes up oxygen more readily as compared to hemoglobin, and it is acting as a temporary house for oxygen. Although myoglobin is only a single polypeptide chain, much similar to the beta unit of hemoglobin, and binds with one molecule of oxygen, but it binds to it more fast and in a more. So on comparing hemoglobin with myoglobin, we already know that hemoglobin has 4 heme molecule which binds with 4 molecules of oxygen, and the curve we get is a sigmoid shaped curve. At P partial pressure of 40 millimeters, the oxygen saturation is 75%. Comparing it with myoglobin, it has one heme group, it binds with one molecule of oxygen, and it is rectangular hyperbola. And when we compare with the partial pressure of oxygen at 40 millimeter, the myoglobin is 95% saturated. So what will be your answer to this question? Depending upon the affinity of myoglobin and hemoglobin for the oxygen, the answer will be myoglobin. Why? Because myoglobin does not unload oxygen till the partial pressure of oxygen is very low. It has a high affinity for oxygen even in very low oxygen concentration. Therefore, it is also acting as a temporary storehouse for oxygen in the muscles. Carbon monoxide, as we know, has 200 times the affinity for hemoglobin when compared with oxygen, and by looking in this figure we can also know that it is competing with the same site on the hemoglobin as with oxygen, and therefore it is decreasing the functional hemoglobin concentration. And when looking into this graph, we can see this is a normal oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve which is sigmoid in nature, and P50 is corresponds to a partial pressure of 27 millimeters of mercury. Now when you compare it with carboxyhemoglobin, you can see that the curve has shifted along the y-axis, and when we compare the P50 for this hemoglobin carbon monoxide hemoglobin dissociation curve, we can see the P50 corresponds to just 0.5 millimeters of mercury, meaning thereby that carbon monoxide lowers the tissue oxygen tension by decreasing the oxygen content and P50 for oxygen, and it leads to severe tissue hypoxia. Now the question is, which form of oxygen transport will be significant for treating tissue hypoxia as seen in carbon monoxide poisoning? The answer will be the dissolved state of oxygen. Why? Because we know that carbon monoxide and oxygen are competing for occupying the same site in hemoglobin for the transport mechanism. So when carbon monoxide binds with the hemoglobin, it impairs the binding of oxygen and therefore also impairs the transport of oxygen in combination with hemoglobin. So the other method of transport of oxygen is dissolved state of oxygen, which will help to recover the tissue hypoxia as seen in this carbon monoxide poisoning. Talking about the effect of diphosphoglycerate on the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve, we know that RBCs are rich in 2,3-DPG, which is formed by the anaerobic metabolism. This is an inorganic or charged ion that binds to the beta chain of deoxygenated adult hemoglobin and therefore results in decreased affinity of hemoglobin for the oxygen and result in shifting in oxygen dissociation curves to the right side, and therefore causes oxygen unloading at the level of tissues. The increased level of 2,3-DPG are seen especially in response to the hormones, for example thyroid hormone, growth hormone, androgen, and also in cases of anemia and chronic hypoxia. The stored blood in the blood bank has a reduced ability to release oxygen. This is so because of the decreased level in 2,3 BPG, resulting in shifting of the curve to the left and therefore lesser release of the oxygen. This is especially important in transfusion of the stored blood, especially in the hypoxic patient, because these patients will get lesser of the oxygen and therefore the stored blood has a limited benefit in these patients. Now the effect of temperature on the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve, as we can see here. One is a normal temperature, that is 37 degrees Celsius, and on increase of the temperature to 40 degrees Celsius, which is the maximum temperature attained by the contracting muscle or the active muscle, the shift is towards right. That means it has decreased affinity for binding with oxygen. The hemoglobin affinity decreases and therefore more of release of oxygen is there. The second one is the effect of pH on the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. You can see with the decrease in pH, that means increase in hydrogen ion concentration, be it lactic acid or carbonic acid, it causes the decrease in affinity of hemoglobin for the oxygen, causing the shift in the curve to the right side and therefore causing more release of oxygen. The third effect is an effect of partial pressure of carbon dioxide on the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. It can be seen that increased partial pressure of carbon dioxide causes decreased affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen, because carbon dioxide combines with hemoglobin to form carb-amino-hemoglobin, which causes decreased affinity for oxygen and thereby causing the release of oxygen and shifting of the curve to right side. So increased temperature, increased carbon dioxide and increase in hydrogen ion concentration, all three factors causes the shift of the curve towards the right side. During exercising muscle, there is an increased carbon dioxide, increase in the warmth or the temperature of the muscle, increase in hydrogen ion concentration and other acids which are produced by the actively contracting muscle, which results in decrease in pH, and also there is an increase in 2,3 DPG level. All these factors result in shifting of the curve towards the right side. There is a decreased affinity of hemoglobin for the oxygen, thereby resulting in unloading of oxygen and results in release of oxygen and utilization of the oxygen by the exercising muscle. Then there is Bohr's effect, which was studied by Danish physiologist. He stated that oxygen binding affinity of hemoglobin is inversely related to the concentration of carbon dioxide and hydrogen ion. As we have already studied, whenever there is an increase in carbon dioxide concentration or an increase in hydrogen ion concentration, it causes decreased affinity of oxygen for the hemoglobin, thereby causing the release of oxygen. So this effect is important as it facilitates the oxygen release from the hemoglobin at the level of tissues. At the level of tissues, there is decrease in the oxygen affinity of hemoglobin. Therefore, more oxygen is delivered at the tissues and there is more uptake of oxygen at the level of lungs. The Bohr's effect can be understood at the level of muscle. Whenever a muscle is actively contracting, there is increased production of carbon dioxide along with hydrogen ion and increase in temperature. So this increased carbon dioxide then causes diffusion of the carbon dioxide from a higher pressure gradient, that is from the skeletal muscle to that of the blood. This carbon dioxide then combines with hemoglobin, which is present in the RBC, to form carb-amino-hemoglobin. This combination results in the release of oxygen from the sites because the affinity is decreased and there is shifting of the curve towards the right side. The released oxygen then goes to the muscle and is taken up by the actively contracting muscles. So studying the Bohr's effect of carbon dioxide on hemoglobin, we know whenever there is an increase in carbon dioxide as seen in the tissue cells, it causes decreased affinity of the hemoglobin for the oxygen, causing the shifting of the curve to right side, and reverse is seen in cases of lung. In lung we have increase in oxygen. So lower carbon dioxide in the lung results in increased affinity of hemoglobin for the oxygen, therefore results in loading of the oxygen at the level of lungs, and curve is shifted towards the left side. Then we have this double Bohr effect, meaning that the oxygen dissociation curve for the maternal adult hemoglobin and the fetal hemoglobin move in the opposite direction, as you can see here. HbA, which refers to the maternal hemoglobin, and HbF, which refers to the fetal hemoglobin, both are moving in an opposite direction. So to understand the double Bohr's effect, we know that the maternal blood is providing the nutrients to the fetus and also responsible for the excretion of the waste products from the fetus. So you can see the values in the uterine vein on the maternal side and uterine artery on the fetal side. You can see that oxygen has a partial pressure of 15 here, and on the maternal side it is 28. So oxygen is moving from high pressure gradient from the mother to fetus. Next is carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide is diffusing from high pressure gradient from the fetal side to the maternal side, so there is loss of carbon dioxide. Then you can see the pH value. The pH is 7.33, and then it is in rise in the pH, and towards the maternal side there is decrease in the pH. So this loss of carbon dioxide along with the rise in pH on the fetal side result in leftward shift of the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve, and similarly there is a gain of carbon dioxide and a fall in pH that results in rightward shift of the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. So these reciprocal changes in acid-base balance that are occurring in maternal and fetal blood during the transit through the placenta are known by the name of double. Fetal hemoglobin consists of 2 alpha and 2 gamma chains. There is no beta chain, and 2,3-DPG is binds to only to the beta chain. So in absence of this beta chain, hemoglobin F has an increased affinity to combine with oxygen. Therefore there is shifting of the curve towards the left side, and as can be seen in this graph also, 50% saturation of the fetal hemoglobin occurs at a partial pressure of 19 millimeters of mercury, whereas in adult hemoglobin the P50 value is 26.8, meaning thereby that even though the fetal blood is exposed to a lower PO2 value as compared to the maternal blood, it has increased affinity for the oxygen. Finally, the third step in the transport of oxygen is delivering of oxygen to the cells. So when the capillary reaches to the level of the tissues, it has still a partial pressure of 95 millimeters of the mercury, and then it diffuses to the interstitium that has a partial pressure of 40 millimeters of mercury. Once the oxygen is there in the interstitial spaces, it is taken up by the cells itself. The partial pressure in the cell that is adequate to maintain the metabolism is just 1 to 3 millimeters, but on the average it is 23 millimeters of mercury, suggesting that there is a good margin of safety at the level of cells for this partial pressure. So finally the oxygen transport is complete. It started at the level of alveoli, then it was transported by the means of dissolved oxygen and bound to the hemoglobin up to the level of this tissue cells, and finally it is taken up by the tissue for various metabolic processes. This is the reference material.